Like to call to order the City of Saugatuck City Council workshop for January 7th, 2026. Jamie, will you call the roll?
Anderson,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Dean,
Here.
Gardner,
Here.
Muncy,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Stanton.
Here. We have a quorum. Any changes to the agenda? All right. That will take us to the first public comment period. Actually, before we get to that, Gregory needs to leave at 4:45 today. Since, this will be a robust discussion, hopefully on short-term rentals. I just want to be sure he gets a chance to weigh in before he needs to leave. So, which takes us to public comment. Anyone in the audience can speak for up to 3 minutes. Come to the podium for those of you in the room and just begin by telling us your name and where you live. Hi, Dick.
Dick Waskin, 6576 Heron Ridge Road, Saugatuck. I saw on your agenda that today you're evaluating where things have come since the short-term rental ordinance went into effect. I think it's probably a good time to reflect on what have been the consequences of that. We had talked beforehand about the possibility of having an economic impact study done before the ordinance was put into place. Unfortunately, that wasn't done. But one of the aspects which I can speak to, I can't speak to all the things that an expert would speak to about an economic impact study, but I can speak to the real estate market. And what I brought here today is just a yearly market comparison for the city of Saugatuck on real estate sales and real estate listings between the beginning of 2024 through the end of 2025. And so, all right, Sarah, you want to? Okay.
The same. Oh, does it? Okay, that's who I am today.
Okay.
Switch that.
But and if you take a look at that comparison sheet, what's on there, and I know entirely the impact is not just because the ordinance went into effect, but I think the ordinance did have an impact on real estate sales, here in the city of Saugatuck. If you look on the sheet for 24-25, you're going to see a lot of red in there. And that's because sales were down. The dollar volume of sales is down. Your median sale price went up for the area. I think that has a lot to do with some of the upper end properties that sold dollar amount wise that kind of skewed that number. Good comparison would be there was a home sale at the end of December last year at 324 North Maple Street, which sold for $1,450,000, which helped bring the numbers up. But that house is not in the district that was affected by short-term rentals on Maple Street. That was able to be sold as, an income property for short-term rentals. So it is, shows that was kind of a plus for that house and for that house sale. So anyways, I just wanted to bring these numbers here to take a look at and keep monitoring them as time goes on. Because I do believe that the short-term rental ordinance did put a downward pressure on real estate sales.
Thank you, Dick.
Thanks, Deb.
Next person.
Afternoon, I'm Larry Wardzella from 719 Pleasant Street. I first want to say thank you for being able to, or willing to meet here and discuss this amendment because it's very important to me. When I got the phone call from Kevin of Bella Vita, who manages my property, I was more than shocked when he said that we have met compliance. I thought we did meet compliance. So when I was told that, we were in at the due time really was 30 days before. So very confusing and very dismaying. So with this amendment, I would just hope that you would really look at it, with clarity of, say you have a short-term rental, or even if you don't, how you would feel if being late for something totally pulls the rug from under you. We've had this rental for several years. We come here with family and friends. We love the place. We love that people enjoy it as well. I mean, there's all the other benefits from that. We consistently get good reviews. We've never had any violations. And from my understanding is if you do have violations, after 2 is when, there's ramifications. Now, I don't know if that definitely means your license is pulled. I would just hope that someone who loves this community, who wants to be here, is not just totally changed overnight by the due date. I think the amendment will help clarify that. And I think there should be some type of grace period perhaps, or a fine. No one wants any fines, but I'd be willing to pay a fine if, it's my fault or something like that. So I just would encourage you to please look at this from, your own perspective, your own life, if it happened to you, that you would want, some goodness out of this, to realize that mistakes happen, but the clarity isn't there, and that's what this can really solve. We never got any email or letters from the post office, no texts. The only text that we received was like almost 11 months prior to this. So we knew that the payment day was when it was, but that apparently wasn't the real payment date. So that's all I have to say. So thank you for listening, and I appreciate the work you do. I know this is not an easy job. So,
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room?
Chad Dupont, Saugatuck. Good evening. Thanks for having me back again. I won't rehash everything I've been discussing. I know you probably heard plenty from me, but in preparation for the workshop tonight, I work with some of the other property managers in town whose clients have also been adversely affected by the ordinance. And we propose what we think are very reasonable changes to the way it's administered. And the issue that I've been addressing and the issue that I keep harping on is the administrative process or lack thereof, and that's what I'm still talking about. But over the past couple of months, I've spoken to many other people in the community who have been adversely affected in negative ways or will be in the future, where their family is about to or could lose their family home that's been their family for generations. So I'm not talking about that, but I do hope that that's something about that is addressed as well. What I want to emphasize tonight is that the issue that I've been asking you to discuss, to consider, and hopefully change is not about short-term rentals. It's about the administrative process. When a permit system produces permanent detrimental outcomes because of unclear deadlines, inconsistent notice, or administrative gaps, that is not a policy success or failure. It has nothing to do with the policy. It's about the process, and that's a problem, and it can be fixed. I put together like an amendment, so I'm like something to look at and consider. That does not change the ordinance that you all adopted. It doesn't expand it. It doesn't increase the number of STRs, anything like that. It doesn't weaken enforcement. It simply aligns how the ordinance is administered with how it was intended in basic permitting practices. And most importantly, it gives you as a council a way to correct the unintended harm without reopening the policy, the full policy debate. At this point, the question isn't whether people were affected. We all know they were. The question is whether the city wants to leave those outcomes in place or take measured steps to fix a process that didn't work the way you intended and give owners a chance to have their investments in our community and their livelihoods reinstated. I'm asking you to choose the latter and adopt the proposed amendment. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Chad.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Islamovsky. I live at 350 North Maple Street here in Saugatuck. I am a local real estate agent, owner of a property management company, Sans Souci Hospitality. You just heard from my husband who runs our company. I'm a board member of the tax review board here in the city of Saugatuck. I'm also an STR permit holder myself. I state this simply to say that I'm deeply invested in the community. I'm invested to help folks in the community, not through only real estate means, but also helping the city with its goals. Most importantly, to protect myself and my clients. My husband, Chad, who runs our property management company, along with other property managers here this evening, have spent a lot of time, many hours, working on this amendment that is in tonight's packet. Thank you for including that. You can find that amendment on page 100. If any folks in the community have not had a chance to read that, I highly encourage you to do so. If you can't find it, please reach out to me directly and I'll be happy to share that with you. Rather than walk everyone here through that amendment, I'd like to offer a real world example of what this amendment hopes to fix and change. I personally hold a short-term rental permit here in Saugatuck for a home that is in a capped zone. We received our permit 3 years ago, and that is set to expire this year on March 2nd. My first concern is that I have not received notice from the city regarding my upcoming renewal or expiration. As a permit holder who pays $540 for my permit, I think that is a very simple administrative task that the city could do, much like the city already does for me for the multiple business licenses that we hold with the city. Second, like many property managers, as well as my clients in the city, we are confused by the existing expiration dates. I'm sorry to harp on this over and over, but it's just what it is. Historically, I have tracked these permit expiration dates to ensure timely renewal. Now there's an additional deadline with the 30 days advanced. So this creates sort of unnecessary complexity. Why not just establish a single consistent date that permit holders can renew on? Lastly, I'm uncertain about the appropriate timing for reapplication. Should I apply now and wait till my property has rentals coming up to have the fire inspection? Should I try and delay the fire inspection? If I apply now in January before I take a trip for a month, my renewal is going to move up 2 months. So in fact, I'm paying for a 10-month permit, $540 versus than a year. As well, if I just apply on February 2nd instead of March 2nd, I'm now paying for 11 months, $540 the same. Anyway, as it stands, the process feels unclear and burdensome. We'd really love for your attention to the amendment.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
I can speak for the cup as well as Chad and David have it. You gotta have my words on paper, but Kevin Tringali Bellavita, 119 Butler Street. Thanks for the opportunity to speak again. I'm here on behalf of the property owners and managers regarding the proposed administration amendment that we submitted recently regarding city short-term rental ordinances. This proposal is narrow, procedural, and corrective in nature. It does not expand short-term rentals, change zoning, raise caps, legalize new STRs, and weaken enforcement in any way, shape, or form. Instead, it addresses unintended administrative outcomes, which every single person in this room is guilty of at one time or another, that occurred during the initial rollout of the ordinance, specifically situations where licenses were lost solely due to administrative noncompliance, such as a missed deadline or a clerical issue, not because of safety or an ordinance violation. This amendment that we put together does 5 things. It clarifies the renewal process by requiring written renewal notice at least 60 days before expiration with clear deadlines and requirements. Secondly, it adds a final notice and short cure period if a renewal deadline is missed, allowing administrative issues to be corrected before a license is forfeited. And third is clearly distinguishes administrative noncompliance from substantive violations such as safety issues and unlawful operations that remain fully enforceable and unchanged. Fourth, it preserves a consistent annual expiration date, like David just mentioned, for licenses when renewals are timely submitted, preventing expiration dates from drifting due to administrative processing time. And finally, it creates a one-time reinstatement opportunity for license holders who lost licenses unintentionally due to only administrative errors. This applies only to previously approved compliant properties, does not account against caps, creates no precedent. These changes align STR licenses with standard administrative practices used for other city permits, improve due process and transparency, and restores fairness and reasonability without altering the policy framework that council had already adopted, all while maintaining the spirit of what this ordinance was originally intended for, and not to catch homeowners and management companies on administrative technicalities. We ask you to please consider this amendment. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thanks.
Kevin.
Thank you.
Mark Titoff, 1021 Holland, and with all due respect to everyone that spoke before me, I'm not so sure how I need to do this, but if I need to piggyback on their amendment or whatnot, but I'm here to ask for an amendment or exception for in the 30-day window for our short-term rental license. I was on a business trip in Austin, Texas, and suffered a ischemic stroke. So I was 5 days in the hospital. My wife had to spend that time with me. Then when I got home, I had to have 24-hour care that she administered. So we missed our deadline because of that certain issue. So I don't know if we add a force majeure, act of God type thing. I'm not so sure. I'm still trying to reconcile with my God why that happened, why that act of God happened to me. But that's what I'm seeking here as an exception for that situation that happened to me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Anyone else in the room?
Hello, I'm Nick Agnew.
We have one more person in the room, then we'll come to Zoom.
My name's Mark Boucher. The property's 955 Holland. My wife's family has it in a legacy trust. Her family has been established in this town for probably 100 years. They've had that particular house since the 90s, early 90s. And I guess this wasn't ready for prime time. I mean, I don't know. The rollout just had too many flaws in it. Everybody in here has pretty much stated their case and full agreement. And I'm happy to hear that wasn't just me feeling offended. It's a bunch of people here. So all I can say is back to the drawing board, and I wish you guys the best, but it's got to have a better outcome than what you got from the first rollout. So
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks. No one else in the room? All right, let's go to Zoom. If you could raise your Zoom hand and then we'll call on you. Nick Agnew.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. And I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm out of town for work, but I own a property at 580 Mason. We built the property in 2014. We love the town. We love being there. We are renting. We are short-term rentals. We have been for quite some time. I'm proud to say that a combination of our home with the amazing town of Saugatuck and Douglas and the area has really, we've had a lot of success and we're proud of it. We are proud of being part of the community. It's my intention to eventually move there full time. But we are, financial reasons and I have one more left in college. This is a financial income that supports, that and other things. But, to the members of city council and the mayor, I'm writing to, speaking to you to respectfully request a consideration regarding the denial and renewal of our short-term rental license at 580 Mason based on our missed renewal deadline. And I acknowledge, your authority to enforce ordinance requirements, but I respectfully also submit that this matter arose from, and like many people I'm hearing, from a good faith misunderstanding related to the notification rather than any willful failure to comply to it. My wife's and my email address was included. For whatever reason, we missed this deadline. And it would have been great to have some type of an alert sent to me, whether it be text or whether it be an email that there was a renewal requirement upcoming. I don't think that's much to ask. I do understand that other associated contacts may have received communication, but had I been aware that the renewal action was required, I would have acted promptly. We have really no compliance issues that I'm aware of. I have, and my wife has consistently sought to operate responsibly, within the city's framework. And again, given these circumstances, I respectfully request that you consider, a reconsideration of this for myself and everybody else here that has spoken so eloquently, or something that may be appropriate. Somebody mentioned fine. If that is the case, so be it. And, I just appreciate the opportunity to submit this for public record. I also want to just say how appreciative I am of the town, what it offers, the recommendations that I give every one of our guests. I'm proud to say I'm a super host, a premier host, whatever, that means maybe to anybody. I'm proud of it. But with that comes my support of all the local businesses, my recommendations for
Thanks,
so many
Nick.
amazing places. And I feel
Nick?
in good faith that I have done this, and I will
Nick, your
continue to
time
do
is
this.
up.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Renee? Renee, you're up next. If you can unmute. Renee, do you still wish to speak? Where did she go?
Where'd she go?
She's in the third row, one in.
Oh, okay.
Renee, if you still wish to speak, unmute and speak. Okay, anyone else on Zoom wish to speak? All right. Anyone else in the room?
Andres.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is my time to speak because I was looking at your agenda and I think it's during public comments later on.
If your comments related to anything on the agenda, you can speak now. If it's not on the agenda, you can speak at the public comment at the end of the meeting.
Okay, mine is about generational owned homes, but we don't have a short-term rental currently, so I'll speak when you want me to.
No, that's fine. Well, I think you can speak now. It relates to short-term rentals.
Okay. Well, my name is Andra Stormer, and I do thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my family. I'm here to discuss the generational owned homes and how current short-term rental ordinance can affect families. Saugatuck is a resort town, and our visitors do need places to stay. On the other hand, we need to have something in place to keep investors with no real attachments to the community from coming in and buying every single home that goes up for sale. So there should be a healthy balance. The current ordinance seems inequitable and penalizes longtime homeowners who may need to rent in the future to keep homes in their family or even to use the income to pay for updates. I've spoken to my brother, Tim Muller, who is well-versed in creative options for addressing STR ordinances. This is one aspect of his law practice in Charleston, South Carolina, and he has told me that there were more creative and equitable solutions. The simplest solution may not always be the best solution, and I ask you to consider how longtime homeowners and their families could be affected by this decision for generations to come, because my family is one of them. My stepfather, Jeff Muller, was a teacher at the old SHS high school in the mid-1960s, and then he moved to California and met my mom when I was young. And we moved to Saugatuck when my brother was 1 and I was 12, and my parents happened to purchase a house in the Hill. My grandmother also moved to Saugatuck and was very active in the community. My stepdad ran the Oval Beach when there were lifeguards, and he served on town council. Sadly, my stepdad passed away at 47 years old from a brain tumor. My grandmother and my stepfather are buried at the cemetery in Saugatuck. I personally graduated from SHS in 1983, and my brother graduated in 1994. And I moved away after high school and returned to Saugatuck when my kids were 6, 12, and 17. I have sons who graduated from SHS in 2017 and 2023. My mother, Barbara Muller, who is in her 80s, still lives in her house in the Hill most of the time and would really like to keep this house in the family. She has 5 grandsons and 3 great-grandchildren now. And it would be nice to know that our family has options and would still be available to enjoy the house. I would also really like to point out that homeowners who rent their homes and use them part-time are still our neighbors and friends. It has always been this way. My family has befriended many of them over the years, and it is not unusual to have the same renters return each year and become friendly with local neighbors. One renter next door to my mom passed out candy on Halloween recently, and that's no small feat on the hill. So we do not have current plans, just to let you know, of renting out our home. But in thinking ahead, we do not wish to have our family's access to our home determined by a lottery that will likely never go into effect in my lifetime as the city waits for people to sell or die to reach this cap. So just because we happen to be on the hill. Anyway, we would like to have future generations in our family enjoy our special spot, which is a
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Renee, I see your hand back up. Do you wish to speak?
Yes, I finally figured out. I just put Zoom on my new phone. Couldn't figure out the how to unmute. So okay, I just want to say Renee Mulcrone, also 955 Holland. We turned in our application. I thought it was due January 30th. Our thing was going to be up. We drove over from Kalamazoo on on a snowy day on the 29th to hand deliver it. So I feel like it was a bit of confusion. I looked on the site. If you look at the parcel site on the website, I looked just to make sure that was when it was going to be. It was a confusion of that. I admit that. However, I also want to tell you, I've been hearing everybody speak about administrative things. And I don't mean to throw anybody under the bus, but I was asked via email, by the way, when did you drop this off? And I'm like, well, okay, you didn't even know when I dropped it off. And I could have lied and said, oh, December 1st. We are a family that has been here. I hate to bring this up and bring this too, but yes, we are a multi-family generation too. And we're obsessed about not obsessed, but we manage things ourselves. And we take care of the house ourselves. We're not like a company. And we are my sister, who might be in the room, is, she's so obsessed about getting that trash can back off the street every time after a renter has been there on a Monday, that it's a joke in our family that you won't be able to find her, in Kalamazoo. She will be in Saugatuck, making sure that trash can is back up off the curb. So I feel like we are kind of like we've been an honest family. We've always had the license when we rented. We didn't try to do things underhandedly. And I feel like we're now being punished. We're now being put in the 20-year jail and it's not going to happen in my or my sister's lifetime that we even have a chance to do this again. So, and I understand, I stood up and spoke for short-term rentals. I realize why you guys need to limit it, but I also feel like at this point, it is a little draconian for some people. So anyway, that's all I needed to say.
Great. Thanks, Renee.
Thanks, Renee.
Anyone else on Zoom? Okay, last call for anyone in the room.
We do have a number right here, at least, no name.
Okay, I can't,
312 number.
312 area code on Zoom, wish to speak? I can't read the numbers after that. Jamie, can you read the number?
Hello, can you hear me?
047.
Yes, we can hear you.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. My name is Ann Goodis, 6822 Sherwood Trail in Sunville. I work for a property management company, and again, appreciate you guys. I was on the task force along with Kevin, I believe, and so appreciate the opportunity to, quick discussion and just some concerns that we do have. I also want to say that I do concur with the other property managers and obviously the numerous homeowners that have been affected by the confusing administration expiration date, which is quite obvious with the number of lost STRs due to the confusion. Unfortunately, there are numerous ramifications. As people have said in the past, it's an administrative process. We understand that, but there's always been, some issues along the way with administrative processes, and it needs like a grace period so we can get accustomed to these changes in dates. Also would like to make it clear that I am talking on behalf of a homeowner, and They had never received any notification, written documentation via email or regular mail. So it's important that, you know, we are speaking on behalf that these homeowners here, a theme here is that they're not receiving correct representation as stated regarding the unattended administration, such as missing dates. I just think, you know, there should be an exception or grace period. Again, the amendment, I was part of the process for the amendment and the changes to make some exceptions. The homeowner I've represented has been renting their home for 20 plus years, no violations ever. In fact, neighbors love her. And so it's very unfortunate that they're being punished so strictly for the first time violation ever. And again, I know that with the STR amendments that were made, you know, there is a violation after two ramifications after two violations. And this is just a one clerical error, and they're getting cut off at the knees especially. So appreciate your time, the opportunity, and hopefully we can all work to a reasonable conclusion. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Thank you.
The number again, 312.
Okay, the 312 phone number, 590? Oh,
Yeah, that's Ann Good.
oh, so Ann, I think that was you. Your hand's still up.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else on Zoom? Okay. And no one else in the room. Okay, that will close public comment. Which takes us to approval of minutes from our December 22nd, 2025 meeting. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass our regular city council meeting minutes for December 22nd, 2025.
Any questions or discussion? All right, it's a roll call vote.
Anderson?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gardner?
Yes.
Muncy?
Yes.
Peterson? Yes. Stanton?
Yes. Motion carries. All right, so that takes us to the short-term rental discussion. The report is on page 6. Ryan or Grayson, do you want to tee it up at all? I'm trusting everybody had a chance to review it.
Yeah, Mayor, if you could, we'd like an opportunity just to maybe go kind of hit some highlights in the report, and I'll turn over to Grayson here in a moment to do that if it's all right. I know Councilmember Muncy's limited on time. I don't know if you, given the fact that he's read the report and at least heard the public comments, give him an opportunity to maybe provide some feedback before he is, has to take off.
I
Or
would like to, is there time for the highlights?
I don't know how long that'll take. That might take,
Okay.
10 minutes or so,
Okay, well then, Gregory, do you have questions you want to begin with and then that we can answer and then weigh in? Or
I guess, well, I have a statement that I'd like to make, and then question. I do have a question. This whole, the whole date thing, keeping it on that same date. I think that's really important. I just want to express, I spent a lot of time looking at this email since you sent it yesterday, looking at our ordinance, which, we can find online. You read ordinance. I think I'm turning into a lawyer now because I'm starting to understand some of it. But I did spend quite a bit of time, and I want to thank you to Chad and David for taking the time of suggesting these proposals, because I kind of kept looking at these and going back to making sure that they weren't really changing things like our STR caps, our zoning rules, that they're not legalizing new STRs. So the proposal does not do what you said it does not do. So, as it's written, and as you have written here. And that is, I wanted to say that I support everything here in their proposed amendments.
Okay.
From a license renewal notice, making sure that they're contacted 60 days in advance, to the final notice and cure period, a 30-day cure period. I think that's fair. The administrative violations, and then section 2, the license expiration and continuity. Again, going back to that annual expiration date, I feel like everybody's playing catch up. I'm hearing so much, not just from the folks that are here, but folks that couldn't be here, people that are my friends and people that are not my friends. It seems that it's quite.
People.
But it's quite loud to me that there are some of these things that really need to be looked at. And I have to say that after going over this all morning long, I didn't even work today. So I spent quite a bit of time looking at this and calling friends that I have in other communities outside of our communities about what they thought about this as well. And just wanted to say that I support their amendments as they sent them. So
Great.
I don't feel that they are going to harm our process as it is,
Okay.
but they're going to protect the folks that we do have. And one more thing, real quick, is the generational hold. I think that's worth talking about. And I know that we're not voting on anything today, but I will be watching this meeting via Zoom. Yeah, because I do have to leave in 10 minutes for another important meeting for interurban at Lake Town Township. So
Great. Thank you, Gregory. Appreciate that.
thank you for letting me express
Yeah,
myself.
no, glad we could do that. So why don't we turn it to Grayson and Ryan, and then we'll further discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just going to start with some market activity and licensing performance. And overall, the short-term rental market was stable. Total number of licenses remained relatively level. Table 1 in the report shows that there were 278 certified licenses in December of 2024 and 267 certified licenses in December 2025. Those numbers don't indicate the certified ADUs because they don't count towards the caps in the R1 districts. The marginal decrease in licenses is likely a reflection of a mixture of routine turnover, geographic distribution, increased compliance in capped R1 districts, and an increase in appropriate licensed ADUs. Initially in 2024, 5 ADUs were identified as short-term rentals. 13 were licensed citywide in 2025 and because ADUs do not count toward R1 caps, their growth reduced the number of cap eligible licenses without reducing the actual rental activity. The cap structure has been operating as designed. Multiple R1 districts are at the maximum allowable license threshold, while a few districts maintain limited remaining capacity. There are approximately 7 R1 short-term rental license holders that lost their license in 2025 as a result of documented ordinance violations or failure to maintain license eligibility. While the current short-term rental ordinance does not define untimely renewal submissions as a formal cancellation. Rather, it specifies that such applications are not to be processed. Those were the main focus of the data of what was canceled this year, as those were likely, or typically, they were the ones who.
Could you explain that a little bit better?
Yeah.
Just that last 2 sentences you said about why they were or weren't.
Yeah, so the way the ordinance specifies is they're just not to be processed. They're not technically canceled. So a canceled license is if they're violating the rules of the ordinance, if the owner changes and it's not within the provisions that were additionally passed.
So
by
you're not
council.
processing them, but they're still, they get them then to be processed by some way, or is it still just a cancellation?
Yeah, so if they apply the 30 days before, they're able to be processed, and if not, they are just not processed and they're able to rent until that license.
But then it's
closes.
It's just in a capped district.
Yeah,
If
and
you're
that's-
in an uncapped district.
Oh, no, I understand. that.
Okay, I just wanted to.
I understand that.
Yep. And so then that's where some of the ambiguity comes in, because perhaps those ones were just marked as closed. And so I went through the data and tried to pull every single one that I could find that had some type of note or email communication, note of a phone call, et cetera, with the actual owner of the short-term rental to make sure that they were reflected here. And I do want to note that actually, from the time that this report was submitted for today's agenda, an additional 2 licenses in an R1 district were canceled due to their untimely submission, and therefore are not reflected in the data you have. However, I believe both applicants actually participated in public comment or submitted.
So we're up to 9.
Yes. And so in January of 2025, the city issued public notice of available short-term rental licenses, which was in accordance with the city council approved lottery process. 2 licenses were available at that time. One was in the Peninsula South zoning district, and one was in the Peninsula North Riverside zoning district. The application window was open from February 6th to February 27th, and no applications were received during this period. It's intended that staff will provide this opportunity on a similar schedule this year, which means a public notice is anticipated to be issued in January for any available licenses in those R1 districts. Table 2 is summarizing the license makeup throughout the R1 districts, giving the total number of units being rented, including accessory dwelling units. And of those ADUs listed, 4 have received a special land use permit to allow for the short-term rental of the accessory unit while the primary residence is occupied full-time. Meaning that the other ADUs are operating as their own certificate and either the entire home is being rented out with an ADU or they're being rented out separately. So enforcement performance, overall 35 complaints were logged through Granicus host system in 2025. And the majority of those were in relation to excessive noise, parking violations, and improper trash receptacle placement following their pickup schedule.
I have another question, Grayson.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
How many of those, were those repeat offenders or were they all new offenders? Or was it the same folks?
There was definitely a combination of both. I don't have the exact number of how many were repeated, but I do remember seeing some repeat and some new coming in.
And so when those are, if they're the ones that are in the cap zones, were they given, were they given a notification by the police? Were they given a, what's the word, citation?
Yeah, so we had actually contracted out a code enforcement service for specifically this summer, and they had gone around and put stickers on each one that was left out, and then that's how it got tracked by us. So then they were given their notice, and then there is certain number that they get before.
Have any of them hit that 3?
Not yet, no. There's been several with 2 though.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. As a whole, the Granicus platform provides 27 complaint intake channel. They allow calls or you can submit a web form, and that enables residents to submit their short-term rental concerns. They are able to update supporting documents, request follow-up, and trigger direct notification to the designated local agent. And that system automates agent alerts, enforcing ordinance mandated response timelines, and creates an audible record of enforcement activity, which has improved the city's ability to track incidences, measure response performance, and encourage consistency across enforcement actions. Parallel to the Granicus intake, the city logged 33 additional short-term rental related complaints in BSNA, 8 of which originated from the short-term rental hotline, and 1 documented as received from outside of the hotline. The remaining 24 were not categorized, and these uncategorized cases likely reflect a combination of the Granicus submissions, direct resident contacts, code enforcement observations, and staff initiated findings. I believe that the majority of those complaints involving unregistered rentals are likely coming from the code enforcement that we hired because they were checking Granicus and then communicating with staff.
Is the code enforcement officer under Granicus or is it under, are they an employee of Granicus or are they a city employee?
So Brian can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we actually had hired out the same people that we use for a planning consultant, which is Horizon Planning. So it's separate from Granicus.
Okay, but it's not run by, they're not a city employee.
Correct.
Oh, thanks.
And then these complaints are now if somebody calls and complains and says, hey, it's too loud. And are these proven complaints? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I remember there was an incident that one of the property owners brought up before about a noise complaint from a property when there was no noise coming from that property. And it was somebody that said, hey, there was noise happening. So if you get 3 calls in a row about noise, is there proof that there was noise there or?
Yeah, so I guess it's not specifically written down. I try to follow up on that, but they do contact the local agent immediately, and they're supposed to respond within that 20 minutes to kind of mitigate that and either ensure that there is no noise being made or kind of help quiet it down if that's the case.
Right, right.
So then it's somehow documented whether it was proven that there was a
Right.
noise violation or not proven. So then it's documented in that way.
Yes.
Okay,
So
good.
then they're not getting complaints filed against them in that way, but
That might be
rather-
false accusations.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Russ, did you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. Grayson, by the way, excellent effort on this report. Thank you for the detail. It's a great starting point for us to begin to analyze how we can better perform this service for our community. One of my takeaways from this is that based on the number of, and I don't know how you measure the metric, but the number of rentals in town, based on the complaints, it seems like it's a low ratio. Does Granicus have any database that it can point to and say, hey, Saugatuck, by the way, you're doing pretty well? The complaints as measured against the number, whether they count the number of nights of rentals or the number of properties, I'd be curious to know where we stand because this tells me that we have a relatively low number of complaints. The other question I have on this is a lot of this data being driven by Granicus? And we don't necessarily need to get into Granicus today, but I think we pay about 19 grand a year for Granicus.
The STRs pay for those.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's all flowing through that. So I'm trying to get a better beat on exactly what they're providing to you as the zoning director. I mean, this is probably, I think, reporting directly to Grayson, right? Granicus? Yeah.
Every complaint, he has those up.
So something, yeah, thank you, Ryan. So something I'd like to learn a little bit more about. The other question is, Grayson, from your experience with this, I don't want to interrupt your presentation. So if you still have some things to talk about, please.
Oh, no.
Okay.
When happy to.
Based on some of the comments you've heard today and you're the front line. I mean, you're literally the person that's dealing with the complaints coming in, with the comments, what's on the street or in your office. How could we get better at this? Do you think do we have some things that we could improve on from a service standpoint? And from your perspective, now with a year of experience or so, and diving into data, what would you think that would be? How would you make this better?
Yeah, absolutely. I will come back to that because I did
Okay,
make a
great.
suggestion in the report. And then I just want to touch on the Granicus and how that's being utilized. It was a huge asset, specifically over the summer when the ordinance was coming into place and there was an uptick of people in the town and they're trying to rent. That is when the code enforcement that we hired was able to come in and then Granicus was identifying potential unregistered rentals for them and they were reviewing all of those and inspecting that. And I'd say that was the bulk of what was happening. We also use it at least quarterly to compare what registered rentals we have on file and what they have and what may be unregistered, kind of match up those dates and what the licenses say. And then we definitely use it for documentation and confirming compliance. It is being reviewed still, I'd say by me, because I'm still not completely familiar with it, but I do believe that it is a valuable asset for the city to have thus far.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then so I just want to say that really taken together that the data confirms short-term rental activity, enforcement activities being, it's coming in through multiple intake sources, which really underscores the need for a more unified administrative filing and documentation protocol, which I'm currently going through to try to make sure that this data is very easily accessible, especially for these year-end reports. And additionally, with this being the first year that the short-term rental ordinance was in full effect and understanding that there were some administrative adjustments with the exit of the previous director of planning and zoning throughout. And when I was newly brought into the position full-time, I really felt it was important to note the additional proactive public communication education that the city provided throughout the entirety of the short-term rental process. And I just want to read those to you. An email notification was sent on August 29th, 2024 to all short-term rental owners and operators outlining how to verify license expiration dates online and reiterating the requirement to submit renewal applications more than 30 days prior to expiration. A mailed letter was sent to owners and agents in December 2024, reiterating renewal requirements, directing recipients to online resources, and emphasizing reapplication deadlines. A mandatory attestation is included within the short-term rental license application, requiring owners and agents to acknowledge review and conformance with adopted ordinance requirements, which specifically draws notice to the renewal deadline requirements. Expiration dates are clearly listed on approved licenses, and it is standard practice to include renewal reminders within the approval emails. Additionally, the city maintains a short-term rental webpage with direct access to the ordinance and any adopted amendments, zoning district maps, and application and renewal procedures. It truly has been a great effort in providing notice and tools to support compliance and really improve transparency for the whole community. Another important aspect of short-term rental programs to ensure is to ensure the service fees are being accounted for appropriately without becoming a source of income for the city and without causing a negative impact on the city's financial status. And the 2025 financial records really do indicate that the fees are on par with actual costs. With the exclusion of late penalty fees, the short-term rental revenue brought in approximately $101,000. Contractual expenses, including those fire department inspections, contracted code enforcement, and legal expenses, averaged $70,000. Prior legal expenses accrued during the ordinance drafting and adoption process were determined to be approximately $6,000, which I believe Ryan can speak more to on how that was exactly split up, because I believe it was set up for a time period to be equally distributed against those who are still on the certificate basis and will be coming into the licensing. Overall, it was estimated that staff time spent on administration and enforcement was near 25,000. And overall, that left a total of $119 in uncovered fees for the year. And then I'll get to Russ's point here. That throughout 2025, staff received recurring feedback from the short-term rental applicants on the impact and administrative options of the ordinance. And taking this into consideration, staff identified a potential operational consideration for your review. And this concern is related to the shifting annual license expiration dates, which require applicants to track renewals on an individualized basis rather than through a uniform renewal period. Applicants noted that a fixed or standardized expiration date could reduce an applicant's administrative errors, improve compliance rates, and make renewal obligations easier to manage. And from a staff perspective, if a large number of renewals were to naturally end up occurring during peak tourism months, those renewal-related fire inspections could end up placing additional stress on the fire department during their peak time. While this has not yet resulted in measurable service disruption, I thought it was worth noting for your consideration. And just one potential administrative refinement for that could be to allow renewal applications to be submitted no more than 60 days and no later than 30 days prior to expiration. And then whenever within that time frame that the certificate or the license is approved, then it would still keep the date from the last year's license.
That would eliminate the 10-month and 11.
The whole
Yes.
drift, yes, the whole drifting.
Yes.
Yes, good.
Yep.
So thank you for.
Great, Ryan, do you want to add anything?
Nothing to add. We're happy to answer your questions.
Okay, Russ?
One last question, Grayson, is based on everything you've heard today regarding the license revocation process, and if it were one limited instance, I would say that's probably one person who didn't understand the rules, but we've got numerous examples here and folks who weren't able to join. Do you think there's an issue here that we need to fix? Do you think there's a problem with the process that we have that needs to be fixed? And it's nothing against any individual, it's just, there seems to be something systemic here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that that's really kind of up to your
Right,
discretion.
yeah, policy
Because
discretion.
everyone did get the same notice, and the majority of people have been able to submit their applications timely, and stay in conformance, not lose their license because of this. I understand that. I think the majority of the people who have had that experience have come to this meeting to express their concern with it, which is understandable. Perhaps if you wanted to have us as staff provide further notification for them, that's definitely something we could do. I've spoke with Ryan on this a bit more, but it will take more work than would initially be thought for it. Because
Grayson, is that something that Granicus could do? Send out those notifications?
that's a great question. And technically they probably could in a sense, but
Just to take the burden off from staff when there's, so many renewals that are happening.
Yeah, because the issue just becomes then with their accuracy.
Okay.
Because they're not in daily communication with staff on what is actually accurate on there. We're more so taking their data and reviewing it against ours and then updating our data as opposed to kind of that two-way street usually.
Okay.
They may be able to do that. Maybe that could be helpful in a sense as long as council was mindful of how that, if that were to be written into an ordinance, because it could be an additional tool to help residents.
Would that have to be written into an ordinance, or could that just happen as an administrative, helpful thing
Yeah, I
that
can speak.
Granicus could do as part of the fees that are being paid by the SDR.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, yeah, I mean, it could be an administrative change that we may not necessarily, wouldn't necessarily need an ordinance update to change that practice. Yeah, it is something that we could do, either whether we check to see if Granicus can do it and see what that cost is, or frankly, if we were going to do that, I mean, it really would come with probably some part-time administrative help would be my preference, even probably over Granicus, to make sure that we have a good, grasp on it and are staying on top of that, because, current staff don't have the capacity to be keeping track of, due dates when we need to be sending reminders for, 275 short-term rental license certificates. Again, we can do that with the right resources, but we would be passing along that. I would recommend that we pass that cost along to the actual short-term rental holders, if that's something that you want to do. And really, another piece of my apprehension with doing that is really it's kind of a little bit of a risk shifting, in that, it's putting the burden on the city to remind you of your due dates that you're responsible for. And we try to do a lot of work, as Grayson covered, to provide a lot of education and put that information front and center. Hey, really keep track of these dates. There's really, there's a lot of ramifications if you don't meet your renewal deadlines. And, it's right on the application that folks are signing, saying they know that, they understand that, they're going to follow those rules. But my concern is that, well, if the risk is shifted to us and we miss sending notices by a certain date, or we're not being consistent with getting a notice to you by this many days and a notice to you by this many days, that opens up, us up to some potential challenges later, and whether or not, we violated somebody's, due process or something along those lines. So that's a little bit of my apprehension about taking that approach. But it's ultimately a decision that you can make.
Grayson, a question. So from the end of 24 through the 2 that just came through, how many licenses have not been renewed because they were, no, I'm sorry, how many licenses in total were renewed? So I'm trying to get the percentage of, so there are 9 that weren't, what percent of total renewals was that? Do you have that number?
There was 179 this year that were
Okay.
licenses issued. So,
So 179 were issued for this year.
179 were issued in 2025. Yep.
Sorry, not 26.
No, you're good.
And a total of 9 were revoked for non-compliance.
No, 7. Now, there's 2 literally, just yesterday afternoon.
Oh, so the 7 didn't include, so the 7 includes the 2?
No.
7
So it'd be 9. So it'd be 9.
7 in 2025.
7 in 2020.
Just wanted to
But
mention.
even if you were to say 9 divided by 170, 179 folks got information in
Which
time.
is what the mayor's doing right now.
This is a tiny, it's a very small percent of total.
4.5, something like that.
Yeah.
That's the calculator.
Okay.
4.5%.
Yeah, my calculation.
So back to the question about the process to get this notifications, improve this is a service. To be honest with you, and I'm an ADU short-term rental owner. I've got a certificate. I'm subject to the same rules and regulations that everybody in this room and others that are not. So I'm very sensitive to this. What I'm struggling with a bit is it seems like a very manual process at this point. Would you say it's more manual than automated?
At this point, yes.
Okay. I think that's where Granicus or another service would be able to, in this day of AI and that's what I do at work, is automate processes.
Mm-hmm.
This seems to be ripe for automation. When you talk about staff having to track dates and all that, I completely respect that. And I respect the risk shifting too. But this seems like something we should be able to have a company automate for a pretty low cost. There's got to be apps out there that will do this for us. It requires inputs, of course, and so forth, but that seems to me would be a pretty quick solution and wouldn't require much effort on our part other than data entry.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. In fact, we talked exactly about that with the AI technologies advancing the way that it is, that this might be very much be something that at some point could be automated and much easier and faster at a certain point. I just don't know that we're there yet. We can check into the Granicus option to see what that would look like and what that cost would be. But certainly, I think you're right. At some point, we could get there.
Yeah, and I think, for this part, I'd love for us to focus sort of on the what and the why, and we can get to the how once we know
Yeah,
a
thanks.
little bit further where we want to go.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll kind of cut to the chase. And first of all, I'd like to thank you, Grayson. This is an excellent report. Very, very good. Very helpful. And I just want to say to staff,
I believe you all have bent over backwards to communicate this ordinance extremely well. So if anybody alleges that the city has not done its job to keep the public informed, I completely disagree with that. Having said that, when I voted for these ordinances, I made it very clear that this was vastly preferable than allowing a ballot initiative to potentially go through, which would have tied the council's hands. I wanted this council to be able to address unintended consequences from the ordinance. We did that on April 14th. We changed the grace period. We made some limited licensing transfer, very limited changes. And I think some of the things you've raised have merit. I am very open to the issue of the fixed versus the variable date. I support a fixed expiration date, provided that the fire department can support a narrow window for inspections. And we need to find out about that, don't we?
Actually, I have spoke with Chris,
Okay.
and this was something that they also had raised. So that's especially why I thought.
Okay, please expand on that then.
Yeah, he actually brought it to my attention that people had raised concern that there was going to be the variable shifting dates, and we were just talking, and he mentioned that that might become a problem in those summer months when it starts getting very busy here.
Yeah.
And if those certificates start shifting, licenses start shifting, then it really could impact their call response time.
I'm willing to leave this to staff and the fire department to discuss, but at the top of my head is winter months, although they certainly have been busy this winter. If this winter is workable for them to have a, whatever it is, 60-day window where everyone gets inspected and is ready for the summer, that's fine. I could get behind that.
That actually would expand their window currently too.
Okay. But let me be clear. And I appreciate everyone that's come here, and I think we all have wanted to avoid unintended consequences. And we've got 4.5% of folks through whatever reason. A lot of folks have different reasons. I'm gonna take them at their word for why they didn't meet the deadline. I'm willing to call it whatever you want. Call it a general amnesty for folks, these 9 that have fallen out due to this administrative error. I'm willing to support that. Although I intend to be, in terms of my voting on this, very targeted. I will vote for a limited amendment that covers this particular topic of these folks that fell out. I am not in support of major changes or adding on additional amendments such as the generational transfer. I will be a no. If an amendment comes that is decorated with a lot of other amendments and changes, I will be a no. Because I have very strong concerns about, as much as it would benefit my family, I have 4 heirs. As much as it would benefit my family on the Hill, we could have our house as a business license in perpetuity, potentially. I think it's potentially unfair to others. And I think it has potential legal consequences, and Jake can correct me if I'm wrong there. But I do think one could make a legal argument that it's somehow discriminatory. So I would want to be very careful that we do not somehow poison or sabotage our ordinance with some additional amendments. And once again, I need assurance from the fire department that they could make it work as a fixed date. I would also need assurance from legal counsel that any changes we make to this ordinance do not weaken the ordinance or create a situation where the ordinance dies a death of 1,000 cuts. So I just want to be clear in my position, Mayor, because you all deserve clarity here. I will be a yes on some type of amnesty for the 9 properties, get them back in the program, do this administrative error. I will be a no if there are other amendments that really weaken our ordinance.
Okay. Just a clarification for the 2-month thing you're talking about. So what was in my head is if my license expires May 31st, under the current law, I need to apply by April 31st. I think we're looking at letting people apply up to 2 months before the expiration date. So that's what I was thinking of for the fire district. Are you thinking that the fire district inspects everybody within a 2-month period?
No, I'm flexible on that part.
Okay.
I want to realize what they're dealing with, but I I am sympathetic to the argument about a fixed date.
I think
mean, you know,
everybody seemed to.
I mean, it would be impossible, even things, simple things in our household. You know, we have 3 cars and like, I know that the registration is going to expire on my birthday for 2 of them and the other one's going to be on my wife's birthday for one. If it was like changing every year.
Got it.
you
Okay.
know,
I just wanted to be
total-
sure I understood what
You
you
know,
were
so
saying.
I get that and I think it's simpler. And if staff concurs that it's something that they can administer effectively and it makes it simpler for everybody involved, I'm in support. But once again, I'll be really clear. I am not in favor of opening this. I'm decorating this with a lot of other amendments, generational, anything else. This one bit, amnesty for this group of 9, when we set this new fixed date in place, and we can figure out how to do that. Once again, and I'll look for legal to make sure that this stays absolutely bulletproof. Our ordinance is very strong. There's a reason, you know, why, even though people have threatened to sue, they have not. The case law is getting stronger all the time. Park Township, I think people have realized that the city will litigate to protect our quality of life. We will litigate to protect our waterfront. So I want to make sure that our ordinance is extremely strong from that standpoint. So I'll be looking to you, Jake, for assurance there. But I just want to be really clear. If it's narrow, I'll support it. If a bunch of stuff gets tacked on, I will be a no.
Okay. Question for you. So on the amnesty for the 9 people, so in April, we did that. We, you know, carved out, you know, and added the grace period. So what happens, and we said when we added the grace period, you know, somebody's going to miss it. And so we could get all of this cleaned up now, and 3 months from now, or whenever, somebody misses the deadline. What's the,
I like it being really clear that it's a one-time thing. We'll do it one more time. We had a year of growing pains, one time, and that's it.
Okay.
I think
I just wanted to be sure
everybody's clear.
your
No,
position.
one time, these 9, you know, it was a lot. This was a big lift for the city. It was a big lift. And you know, I would have thought everybody was paying attention, but once again, I'm not going to go into details of what individual circumstances were. I'll take folks at their word. One time to clean it up, clean slate for everybody, but that's it.
Okay, let's keep going. Chris, next.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for the report. When I ran for office, the whole issue of the caps, that ship had sailed. So when I ran, and I think you can remember this, I specifically thought we should have an appeal process. We should have people held harmless. And I suggested that and I really think a lot of the generational transfers. I'm happy with the fact that there were only this many people.
Mm-hmm.
And that we can see the effect of the caps already, which Dick brought forward with they're doing what we wanted them to do. And I don't know if it's people didn't understand it or weren't paying attention or whatever, but I've always felt it should be held harmless. Now, the way to do that going forward, because 3 months, something happens and somebody else misses it, then I think that needs a little bit further discussion. Because if it's the first time that they mess up the registration, because they're all going to go through this, you know, but if they go through it once and they get nailed, you can't go through it again.
Mhm.
But if you go to do your registration the first time and you screw it up, then you get a buy, one buy.
Is that for the person who's renting it out or for the property manager? And so say a property
owner.
property owner. So you could have a property manager who has 4 properties that get the screw up, but with 4 different owners.
Well, it's 4 different owners
That
that got
helps.
screwed.
Okay.
So pretty much, yeah.
Okay, I wanted to be clear.
Yeah, and I think that, I know that this has always been a contentious issue, but I think we've mellowed a lot
Mhm.
over the past 2 years. And I think I look at these people and I've talked to all of them, and there's nobody out there that's trying to pull something. I mean, something just happened. And God knows that it can happen to all of us. I panic every time it's time to pay my property tax. And the only way I remember is it's 9/11 or Valentine's Day. And so I think that we have something that we can say, okay, here are the times when you apply, same time every year, and in the summer or in the winter months, so it's not that much. But then if you mess up your first one, only your first one, you get one, what do I want?
Mulligan.
Oh, yeah, you get a mulligan. Nice.
I don't even golf.
You get a mulligan. You don't get 2, but you get them all.
So the quick clarification, so are you saying that everybody applies at the same time, or that there's a May 31st expiration date of February 15th? I mean, people's expiration dates are all over the map now. Do we keep them where they are, or do we just have one or a few expiration
I always
dates?
felt like that was a fire department thing. We needed
Yeah, because I think
that's what they came to us and said, we can't just do them all at once. We would never, have time to get through.
Right, so that was my thinking too. So whatever it is today, if it's January 1st, or I don't know if they always expire on the 31st, but whatever it is today, it will be that way in perpetuity. It's just that you could apply up to 2 months in advance, but the renewal effective date is always the same.
Say the same. Okay, I can see that, because the way it was being discussed here was that we were losing a month or 2 months.
Well, that would eliminate that.
That
So
would take care of that.
So if your license expires the 31st, you could apply up to 2 months in advance. But the date of your license would still be the 31st. So it's.
So-
Yeah, those are my concerns.
So I'm a little confused on this. So I heard that we were going to discuss having it all put on, say, January 1st as an example. All licenses are due to be renewed on January 1st, and there has to be some process to get there, either through a proration or something like that. So then that way there would be a known date. That's kind of what I heard when you had a conversation with Chris. That might have been something they'd be interested in. Or now what I'm hearing is, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to have your you're a fixed anniversary date. So it means they're still going to have situations where the fire department may have to do inspections in the middle of the summer. And I've heard from several property managers that it can be very disruptive to have to try to schedule inspections during the summer because the homes are very busy. That's also, and that's part of the service that we're providing, is we don't want to disrupt a business, right? So I'm just trying to think through what makes the most sense from a administration standpoint.
Well, could it be like an open I just use a health term, open enrollment. I mean, could it be, the window is open, January to end of Feb, apply, get inspected, something like that. Is
So
that?
what is the fire department?
That's what I'm
I think
thinking.
we're getting into the how, and that's really something I think we should ask staff to come back to us with.
Fine.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot to consider with that. I would want to hear from the chief, who oversees his department staff, that he would even be open to that. At the time of us meeting and discussing putting them all on one date before, he was, not supportive of that. That was not in the recommendations. The other piece that, I don't know if Grayson's given this a whole lot of thought. Does he really want to process 275 applications in a short window of time? And there's a pretty heavy lift on our part there too. And then, I remember some of the issues being with some rentals, that they had inspections, that they needed to occur during the winter time, but the homes are winterized and people aren't there. And so, your home has to be ready to go and meet all the health, safety and inspection requirements. And so that was, creating some issues as well. So that's kind of where we stayed with this, these weren't like new. I mean, the annual licensing was new, but I mean, we were doing inspections throughout the year before. In fact, the dates for your end date shifted before too with the certificate program. That was not something different with the short-term rental licenses. That wasn't a change. We simply kept that piece there. The thing that changed was that you had to apply so many days ahead in advance for us to get through that process.
Now that we have some experience with this, who's the best practice community out there? I know the short-term rental task force did a lot of discussion with other communities with similar type inventories to Saugatuck. Someone else has figured this out already, has been doing this for a lot longer than we have. I'd be kind of curious as to what they do to manage these situations, because other communities have exactly the same situation. So I'd just be looking to what's best practice out there. Who's doing this the best at, maybe we don't know who that is, but
I think what we found through that process was that it wasn't one size fits all, and there was
Right.
everybody,
Okay.
it was very community specific.
And we
yeah.
did spend a lot of time
I was
on
gonna say,
this.
see a lot of labor to try to pull that out, and I understand where you're kind of coming from. I think we've got quite a bit of consensus.
Well, we haven't heard from everyone yet. So Joe
And Lauren.
and Lauren, please.
No, I've been asking questions along the way, so please, go, Joe.
Yeah, I
Go,
mean,
Joe.
Go,
I-
Joe.
last year, I thought we had a really good discussion as we made some adjustments to the ordinance. We looked for an intersection that would not overwhelm our staff, not overwhelm the fire department. Try and keep it as simple as possible for the property owners. And what we came up with is what's out there. So I asked myself a question, is there room for improvement in the process? I think we all recognize there's room for improvement. I've done some talking with some short-term rental owners to ask their feedback. Uniformly, everybody's saying the same thing, fix the date, right? Which I took to mean fix the anniversary date, not put everybody on the same calendar date. We could have that discussion that gets into more of the how. But I think, can we make it better? Sure. Is that going to make it better? Gotta think so. The fact that we hit 95.5%, success rate doesn't mean that we have a beautiful, well-oiled process, but it does mean that, it can be done. So if by making that change, I think at least from the people I've talked to, is going to make a material difference, going to make it easier. So that's kind of the one point of view I share. I support it probably along with everybody else here. As far as, the city taking on additional responsibility for notifications, that's probably a deeper discussion. I'm sensitive to, our city manager's point about, putting the city in kind of the crosshairs, right, if things don't go well. I'm sensitive to the fact that there's going to be costs, possibly significant costs. Those costs are going to have to be passed on to the property owners, and 95.5% of them may not appreciate the fact that they got it done, and now we're going to have to pay for more costs to put in. But at the same time, some of them may not. Some of them may say, no, it's worth the insurance. So I think there's more dialogue there before we get down that path. But right now, I'm kind of leaning towards, I'm not sure I want to put the city in the crosshairs if we can get away with it. My advice or recommendation would be, let's make this adjustment, fix the anniversary date. I think that makes a material change in the process. I think it simplifies things for a lot of people without the city having to take on a lot of burden and responsibility for the process ownership. So I asked myself the question, and I'm kind of, reacting to the amnesty thing here. I think we got to step back and say, as a council, are we going to enforce the ordinance if people miss the date, right? Because my impression was the last time we sat down around here, we had this discussion. Statistically, there's always going to be somebody that misses it, right? So are we going to enforce it or are we not? And maybe that's a deeper discussion for another point of time, but, it's, on one hand, it's not fair to the people that are waiting in the wings to get, a shot at a short-term license, but I'm also sympathetic to the fact that there are, extraordinary circumstances that, I don't want somebody to lose their license, certainly because of a medical issue. I mean, that's, right. So I'm a little borderline on that one. I guess I could go along with yet another one-time amnesty, but I would want to hear the rest of the council kind of weigh in on whether or not they're committed to actually holding the line at some point in time. Because we either have to hold the line or put in place a penalties, to make it fair for everybody, whatever it's a financial penalty or what have you. So
I'll respond to that if I may. No, I hear what you're saying, Councilman. I do. I do think, though, I do hear the confusion on the date issue, variable versus fixed. To me, that is grounds enough for one more time, clean slate, one more time, that's it. So, I hear what you're saying and I agree. And I do think, though, that if we, once again, as we continue to refine and make these, targeted changes to the ordinance, if we're going to put a new anniversary date that's fixed on everyone, the folks that fell out of compliance administratively because of the confusion around the variability, I think, a do-over, the amnesty, I'm in favor of.
Well, and just to speak on that, something that Chris mentioned is, if you have a noise violation, you get 3 times before you lose your license. And to me, the noise violations are what really affects the neighborhood. It affects your neighbors
How this all started.
yeah, and that's where, this is an administrative error that nobody would even know that they made a mistake. And, I just think this is an opportunity for us to say, okay, let them, miss it one time and then they're not allowed to miss it again. That's, I agree with Amnesty on this because it has been confusing for some folks. But now that we are fixing the drifting expiration dates, maybe that'll, help going forward.
I don't want somebody to lose their license because they didn't get a deadline met. That's just.
So let me ask a quick clarifying question. So we're having kind of two amnesty discussions. One is for the 4.5% we're talking about now. And then the other idea floated was sort of the mulligan, that everybody gets one amnesty. So Scott, sounds like you are against that.
I'm in favor of the one time because we are contemplating making a change in the date, which has been the source of confusion. My concern about the mulligan is someone suddenly now says, okay, I've got this optionality. I just won't renew because I'm going to stay here for a while or whatever. I've made up my mind. And then a few years down the road saying, oh yeah, I forgot, but I really wanted to. So give me my mulligan now a few years later.
Okay.
It was actually, there was an interesting, and I'll defer to Jake though on the viability of it. The idea of, if somebody really misses it by like that 60-day window, there was another 30-day cure period where we're like, are you sure? It's interesting. I mean, you can react how you want to that, Mayor, but I did find that interesting. Just to once a time say, okay, if you are gonna, relinquish this, let this lapse,
Yeah.
But that, once again, that may create an administrative burden. So that, I'm open to other thoughts on that, but it is an interesting concept.
Joe?
That's exactly where I was going to go. I mean, we're getting creeping administrative burdens here, right?
Okay.
Whether we do do-overs or one time, you get one draw or whatever, at some point in time, right, this is going to roll over into additional costs. And at some point in time, we're either going to have to end up bringing in some temporary help or pass it off to a Granicus or whatever. I'm fine with that, right? But I still keep going back to the fact that, is that going to be the view of the majority of the people that don't have a problem? And if we correct the state, right, have we made it easy enough now where do we really need to be offering this mulligan or whatever?
Yeah.
Right? So, and the last thing I'll say, and I'll be done, is, at some point in time, I think the residents expect us to enforce these ordinances, right? I heard that so loud and clear on the campaign trail.
Yep.
In fact, I campaigned on it, right? They don't want to see this diluted.
Yeah.
And we even saw, we're still getting indications that, people think there are too many short-term rentals out there, right? So there's a lot of different stakeholders here, right? I'm not saying I'm in favor of administratively, penalizing people and being too overly punitive, right, for things like that. But I am saying that there's a lot of stakeholders out here that probably have different points of view on this whole thing. And,
Well, yeah, okay, I do think there's room as well, to, as we did on April 14th, to address staff load, staff costs, city costs, is to change the fine structure. Frankly, I think the fines for late fees, the fines for non-compliance, the violation fees should be higher.
So
okay, but are we going to allow that? That's really the question that I think would have to be discussed, right? And then what is the penalty, if you will?
Yeah.
Right.
Russ?
Yeah, thanks. And Councilmember Peterson and Councilmember Stanton brought up something really good about, say, a noise ordinance violation, or you left your trash can out. There's a process by which you get a couple of warnings. If you're not compliant with the paperwork, you know what the penalty is? You lose your license. Gone. That's not proportionate, in my opinion. I think that's what we're all kind of coming around here, is that's not proportionate to the crime, so to speak. I think complete revocation of a license for missing a required due date is just disproportionate. And it just doesn't seem to fit with what we're trying to do. And I think a more balanced approach would be to implement a graduated penalty system. For example, first-time offenders, kind of like what we do with our noise and garbage cans, could receive a warning or even a temporary suspension rather than an immediate revocation. That seems to me to be reasonable, and that's a good service. And I think it's in response to what we're hearing, what people have experienced. All the other issues aside, that allows individuals an opportunity to rectify the situation while still holding them accountable for missing a deadline. And the 4.9%, even though that seems very successful, what that resulted in is 9 property owners losing their license, period, for at least 20 years until the cap is hit, or until we come down to the cap.
We don't know how many.
So,
Yes.
but point is that 4.9% can be looked at as being successful, but I look at it as being maybe not quite successful because it resulted in this number of people losing their business. And I am in support of giving them a amnesty, whatever you want to call it, to rectify this. I think that's reasonable. You know, that's the reason why we have a lot of people here is we have 9 properties at least that have at risk of this year. I had one of the property owners call me last night and said, Russ, I need to contact the 2 people who rented my house for the summer because I don't know I'm going to be able to rent to them legally. That's where people are. And I'm in full support of having an amnesty on this, but I'm also in support of thinking this process through and providing more flexibility and not making a revocation be the immediate result of not getting paperwork in, whether it's within that 5-day period, which we implemented back in April, to several council members said, and I supported that too. This is a process issue, in my opinion, and it's an equity issue.
So I have a kind of listening to everybody, I have a thought of what might work for everyone. And first of all, Grayson, thank you. You did a great job and it's really helpful to have this data. And I know it was a lot of work and appreciate how well you summarized it. And thank you to everybody who came online and on Zoom. And to Joe's point, I think we made some good changes in April. I think we have the opportunity to make changes. I do think, I will just say, you know, for people who said that that we didn't communicate this well. I mean, every single person who lost their license signed an attestation acknowledging this. So I appreciate those who acknowledged their part of it, and we can certainly, I think, improve. But I think the city has done a really good job, and so I just want to get that out there. I could get behind a sort of the one-time thing for the 4.5% of the 9 people or 9 owners. But I am not, but I think we have to draw a line that we're going to stick to, because we're just going to, you know, we're going to become South Haven where we're tinkering with this all the time. And that becomes crazy. Maybe what we could do is send every license holder, and this would be a short-term burden for staff, but every license holder an email and a snail mail thing saying this, and to keep the whatever expiration date they have now is their expiration date forever, whatever that is. You can, and so the letter would say, this is your expiration date. You have to apply every year. You can apply as early as 60 days before, no later than 30 days before, and wherever you apply in that, the date, your expiration date's the same. And this is it. I mean, well, for you, I mean, for the people who are affected, that's your mulligan, you know, that's it. For everybody else, it's like, we're clarifying this. There's been some confusion. Let us be painfully clear. Expiration date, reapplication period, you know, process. Sign this, have it notarized, send it to the city. If you miss your expiration date, you lose your license. I don't think that's unfair. Keep that would, other than that one period of getting out to everyone, it keeps the administrative burden low on staff, and it's fair to all the people who do renew it. I mean, I am with Joe. There are a lot of people who are going to have to pay a bigger fine next year, or a bigger fee next year, because again, we're going in and incurring more costs to make changes. And I think, you know, for the mom and pops who just want to rent out their house for a few weeks in August, they are unfairly disadvantaged by all of the changes we're being made. And that's how we kind of got started in the short-term rental business. And those are the people who I think we have to really take care of. I think that's fair. I don't believe in a cure period. It's like, here it is. We're going to spell it out really simply. And then it's up to people. And, these are business owners operating in our neighborhoods, and it is incumbent on them, I think, with something that is that clear, to then manage their businesses. And if they aren't able to do that, then that's really too bad, and I feel bad, but the onus is on them.
I hate to interrupt, but what about an appeals process for somebody that has like a medical
So
issue?
he would fall into that. So he's in the one time and
Right, but what about
I
a
could see,
future?
okay, future, I could
future
see, I
person
could
who
see a
might
future force
have a
an
medical
act
issue.
of God. And
Is there something
Yes, I
that
think
there could be an appeal where somebody can say,
I
no.
think somebody who can prove in a way, and we'd have to figure out how to do it with HIPAA,
Yeah.
but in a way who can prove an act of God, yes, because that was the one, as all of these came in, that I've definitely felt that truly was beyond his control.
I think if we're gonna, my recommendation would be if we're gonna do that, we just put some boundaries around it, because otherwise every single
Right, for
exception, everything's gonna be an
I
exception.
mean, what
right?
would the COVID-19 outbreak have meant if we had such a provision?
I think it's an act of God that prohibit, and I don't know, we can ask Jake if he can, keep it narrow enough.
I think we have to be some kind of community warmth here too. I mean, these are people that, because of the act of God or something like that, I can see, as Councilmember Stanton said, there's a difference between, oh, I missed the deadline, to I was in the hospital.
Exactly. Or, a hurricane went through town and, I mean, I think that would,
if we have an aging population, there's a lot of things that could happen. You know what I mean? There are a lot of things that could happen. So I don't know.
But so, we can maybe ask our attorneys to explore that as an option.
I like the
That's
idea
a
of the
good
thing.
suggestion.
It is, and I like the thing of the thing going out, and we can put that in the paper, we can put it on our website. Here it is.
Yep.
Here it is.
Again, to get back to my comment earlier, I think the immediate loss of a license for 20 years under the current scenario is not proportionate to missing an application deadline. So I suggest we still look at having some type of a graduated program where they could receive a warning. It doesn't matter what the issue is. I don't want to get into PHI. I don't want act of God stuff. You missed the deadline, here's your first warning, right? It's like getting stopped by the cops, right? The cops have the ability to say, all right, Mr. Gardner, you were speeding, you ran that red light, I'm gonna get a ticket, but if I ran the stop sign or slow rolled, they're gonna say, don't do that again. It's not a, hey, by the way, give me your license and give me your car keys because you're no longer driving now. That's not how it works.
I won't vote for something that has that in it.
No, what I'm suggesting is that we need to have a bit more discretion here, as well as giving our zoning administrator ability to have some flexibility on this and not feel like he's gonna get.
I don't think we put flexibility in on
Would
that.
that be challenging, Grayson?
I think that'd be unfair to
I
them.
think it puts the staff in a really bad spot.
Yeah, and I think, Sherwoody's unmuted a few times. We have him until 6, so if there's any particular questions that you have, or maybe Mayor, if he has anything in particular he wants to add. Some of this may take a little legal research to see if we, given the length of time with some of these that, that have expired,
Jake,
gotta make sure we're on solid legal ground with some of these, but.
Yeah, well, maybe if there's any immediate questions, I'd be happy to field those first. Otherwise, you guys have kind of been a little bit all over the place. So there's a lot of different
Legal
angles
opinion, Jake?
No, of course not. I would never say something like that about you guys. So generally, I'd be concerned about delegating that much discretion to just like one administrative official like Grayson to do a case-by-case evaluation. Certainly, like we could build in an appeals process if that's something that the council is interested in having some sort of flexibility to ease the application of the ordinance under extraordinary circumstances. One thing that I don't necessarily know has been discussed yet. So there is the suspension and revocation of license process for other kinds of violations. And I do want to say real quick that that distinction is important. When we're talking about people who fail to timely renew their licenses, those licenses aren't being revoked. They are just expiring by their terms. And then they, like, you know, everyone else in the district who doesn't have a license, are subject to the cap. So it's not a revocation. It is a natural expiration of the license due to their failure to timely renew it. But the way the ordinance is set up now is that just, you know, that's the end of your license because it didn't renew. There is a process for a suspension or revocation of a license due to failing to comply with other ordinance requirements. So noise was one of the examples. That does require notice and a violation hearing in front of the city council, and then the license holder can, you know, basically present their reasoning for why they have good cause to not have their license suspended or revoked. So maybe that's something.
Those are
Oh,
just with
excuse me?
violations, right? Those are just with the violations, right? That doesn't have anything to do with administrative review. I mean, right now, that's if your garbage can, the noise and everything else. The deal that we're working with right now, where people have missed the deadline, that doesn't flow over to that ordinance to allow that to go before the city council, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's what I'm saying is right now it doesn't include that, but that framework already exists within the ordinance. I think the potential downside there is this requires all of these requests to come in front of the city council, which could be pretty burdensome, seeing as how often this happens. And it would also kind of put the city in the unenviable position of deciding on a case-by-case basis what is, you know, good cause for missing this deadline or not. Probably another concern that I would have is, you know, the city has these legitimate, you know, public safety interests in ensuring the reapplication and the accompanying inspection every year. Missing that renewal deadline, that means you're not getting your inspection. And essentially at some point you're just an unlicensed short-term rental that's operating. So maybe something to think about. There's varying levels of, I guess, cumbersomeness and complications in amending the ordinance to kind of deal with one-off situations. I think we've seen that once already. The most recent round of amendments we did, where we had a specific like date range that we had to call out into the ordinance, and that was you know, very much tailored to a certain situation. That's now part of the ordinance indefinitely. So it's a little cumbersome, but it's certainly doable if that's something that the council wants to provide for. I don't think it can be done administratively to give these licenses back that have expired.
And Jake, in terms of going forward, sort of an act of God exemption, do you think is that something that we could keep tight enough so that people don't abuse it, or?
So we can set the standard. Are you envisioning that only being tied to like a failure to timely submit a renewal application?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would have to first establish a standard for what an act of God is, and there's plenty of, you know, legal definitions out there, and we could tailor it as we see fit. Then the question is, who makes that determination and under what criteria? So is it something that comes in front of the city council? I think it would be, you know, something like looking at maybe unintended consequences. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the people that spoke today would want to at least take the opportunity to try to qualify under that exception. So there would be an administrative burden, be it to city staff or the city council in deciding those. But
correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I think you're suggesting and a one-time, it's being termed amnesty, so I'm using your terminology, but one-time amnesty plus in the future, having this act of God appeal option.
Yeah, so it's for the guy who had, had the stroke, or if, a tornado went through town and, people were unable to do things for a month or two. I could see giving an exemption to them, but again, we have to, what you don't want to do, like, he's the only one here that I would put under that. I think missing your license because of a clerical error is not an act of God.
Yeah.
So,
But I do think like trying to clear up some of the confusion of, this first time ordinance, we're trying to help with that.
yeah, I mean, so if we do this, whatever we call it, amnesty for the 9 people, okay, that's one thing. But I think that's where I come in with then a letter to every license holder saying, if you miss it, you lose your you cannot renew, then you have to renew your license, and if there are no caps
And
or no licenses.
can I just clarify one thing, just because I still feel like it's a little bit vague with the 30 days.
Right.
So is your expiration date the expiration date, or is it exactly 30 days before your expiration date that you have to submit your application?
So I
Your
think
renewal.
we could call it, your license effective date is, say it's May 31st. Your application renewal period / deadline is March 30th or March 31st through April 31st.
I could clarify that.
Yeah.
So what I want is if somebody says my deadline is May 31st and oh my gosh, I'm just getting in on May 31st. If it takes another 30 days for them to get their inspections, then they just can't rent it until they have I'm just saying that that's where it gets a little confusing for people. So we're saying that your deadline is actually 30 days before your deadline.
Your application renewal deadline is 30 days before. And I think we can work on, language that just makes that painfully clear. Like if your renewal application date, so dear Lauren Stanton, your short-term rental certificate expires May 31st, 2026. You must to renew, you must submit your application no later than, April 30th, blah, blah, blah. If it comes in any day later than that, you're ineligible to renew.
Why are we doing that? I mean, why are we doing a whole 30 days ahead? I mean, they're gonna look at it.
Fire department.
It's
Well,
yeah,
but it shouldn't be like okay, here's your deadline. But you have to have it in by here, and if you don't have it in by here, then you've lost everything. I mean, there's 2 different dates there.
The reason why it's set that way is that, we want folks to apply, have staff time to review the application. If there's any deficiencies in the application, they have up to 14 days to respond with the information that we need, and then we need to get it to the fire department, get that inspection done, get the information back from the fire department, enter that into our system, and then issue the renewed license. Typically, that can take up to 30 days, to get done, and we want to get that done before the license expires. Otherwise, if your license is expired and you apply the day before it expires, then you're operating your rental without a license. You're renting without a license.
Yeah, as much.
Sense.
Yeah.
It's just, people look at a deadline and they think of that date.
Well, so the deadline, go ahead.
I think,
Well, your driver's license is the same way.
I think you just make it very, very clear. Your application for renewal is due on this date. You have up to 30 or 60 days prior to get that done. If you do not, your certificate will expire. You just make it real simple. Don't throw out multiple dates. There's no way you can get confused. This is the day you have to respond by. I mean,
Because we don't want people operating without a license.
you don't.
No, I mean, I can support where you're going. My preference, if it was administratively doable from a staff standpoint, from the fire department standpoint, would be just to have, you know, like your property taxes, like your federal taxes, there was a date where we had to get, everybody had to meet this deadline. So it could be easy to communicate. People would understand, you know, if you don't have your certificate and you haven't renewed it by, you know, whatever, Memorial Day, whatever, you know, April 15th, whatever, do their taxes, that everybody was could understand and it was clear. I mean, that would be the ideal situation, but once again, I'll defer to staff on
Yeah,
what's
we
feasible.
talked a lot with that, with Janik and the fire
Okay.
district of the short-term rental task force, and that was a non-starter for them.
Okay.
And they can't do it all at once, and it's a
I
burden
agree
on
with you.
staff.
That would be the easy answer.
All right, yeah, as I said, if,
One day
if,
for everyone.
if the fire department can't.
But we can ask him again, but I
I just almost wonder, you know, if they could have a situation where, you know, they could even plan for it, you know, they know they're gonna get this much revenue for doing the inspections. They hire like a retired firefighter that just does inspections, and that's that individual's job for 2 months during the winter or in the spring before the rental season starts. You know, I don't know. I defer to them on what's feasible. I'm willing to do it one time, but I don't want to keep coming back to this because somebody else said, well, you know, my anniversary date was this, and now you guys changed it again. My anniversary date this. I didn't know. I just really would like to be, you know, crystal clear to folks in a real simple way, because I think, you know, unfortunately, we've got to be, I mean, staff have done a great job trying to make this as simple as possible, and my compliments to staff, 100%. But, you know, people get confused, you know, and people are juggling a lot of balls, so. Yeah, you know, in an ideal world, I think it would be, you know, okay, you know, hey, it's April, you know, it's on the news. It's April 14th, it's almost midnight. You guys there? You know, you there? You doing it? You wait until the last minute? You know, you gonna line up outside City Hall, and but once again, we don't want to.
Yeah,
disadvantage
I mean, I
staff.
think we can ask, but I don't know.
Okay.
if that would work.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so is there consensus around, it sounds like there's consensus around asking our legal team to find an amendment to our ordinance that gives the 9 licenses back.
Do we need that? in an
Yeah,
ordinance?
do we really need that?
Yeah, we
can't process them without there being the authority to process those applications in some way, so.
Yeah,
So we can't just by council motion
no,
direct that to happen.
nope.
No, in fact, I mean, right, you know, I mean, obviously we'll work on, you know, legal counsel for some language in the ordinance, just like we did last April. As it stands today, there's a penalty fee. I'm sure that something along those lines would be applicable to this like it was to the, you know, well, to anybody that, you know, today we're gonna apply late, but that had to pay last time as well. Yes, it will have to be an ordinance amendment.
And then no cure period.
Good, fine.
Can we live with no cure period? I know, Russ, you want one.
I do too.
Okay, Joe?
I would prefer not to have a cure period.
I'm okay. If we can find a legal way to legally do the amnesty
For these 9.
for these 9, no, I think there's been a lot of change. It's been a lot for folks one time.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
And then going forward,
Just to clarify regarding the cure period, there's already a 5-day
right, that's true. We do.
grace
We have,
period. We're going to retain that, but we're not going to change it.
right.
Is
Yep.
that the direction I'm getting? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then in terms of future, because this is going to happen again. I mean, so do we want to send a letter to people saying, this is it? Mark this on your, you know, wherever you track stuff, track this, because if you miss this deadline, you'll have to reapply for your license. And if there aren't any licenses available, it means you won't have a license.
Just to be clear, we would be changing the ordinance to establish an anniversary date for each license holder, correct?
Or the anniversary date, I mean, the current date for their license expiration would not change.
So
Yes.
if it's April 31st that I lose my license, if I haven't applied for it on April 2nd, I've lost it. Is
Correct.
that correct?
Well,
Yeah.
in that case, you're within the grace period,
Oh, right.
Right.
where you can apply late up to 5 days
So
and pay a penalty fee.
That 5 days.
Yep.
So we're saying there's no discussion regarding have some type of a graduated, similar to what we have with noise violations and garbage can violations. It's, if you miss that, your license is revoked and destroyed. period.
Well, that's,
If you miss the 5-day period that we currently have. For
And so your first offense is going to be a revocation,
but they'll get.
or not a revocation, excuse me, you're not going to be allowed to renew.
Yeah, and we'll let them, I mean, that's what it is. I mean, that's what it's always been. What's changed is the available licenses. So it's keeping what we've always had.
Well,
and
always
then-
keeping something we've had, out of all due respect, Mayor Anderson, doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way. We should always be looking at this to improve this and make this as efficient as we can for the zoning director and the city manager, as well as for the people that rent their homes in the community. This is a service that we need to get as good as we can at.
It's a, I would say it's a privilege. We are allowing people, whether they're a business, like some of the business property managers here, or individuals to run businesses in our neighborhoods. And that's great. We know that that's important to our tourism industry, to helping people make some money to pay their property taxes. But, you know, I think it's not unfair for us to put some tight parameters around boundaries.
Yeah, no, and I'm in full support of boundaries. I just think we need to have this be a bit more equitable than it's treated differently than
You
the
know,
other offenses.
95% of the people so far have had it work, Russ.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I mean, we disagree on that. And so we need consensus from others because
I still would, if it's possible, would like, to make it clear to the whole community that, 2027, your deadline is this hard date for everybody. And I'm okay.
Do that.
Can't do that.
I thought you said you were gonna.
Well, I think
achieving that.
we can send everybody a letter, so,
About,
Chad and David get a letter,
their date.
with their dates, Kevin and his owners get letters for their date, so everybody,
Be the same date every
Yeah,
year.
it's not, it's a their date
one
don't
date,
change.
It's
No, it's one date for, it could, but it's different for every individual.
correct.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
It's like, okay.
But
Yeah,
it's a new set of communication that goes out one more time to remind everyone. The 30-day thing has to be completely
Completely,
clear.
right.
Because apparently that's not clear.
Right.
So we have to make sure that that's clear.
Is it 30 or is it 60?
See?
No, I don't mean currently. I mean, do we
You're
want to
allowed-
change it to?
Yeah,
60?
you're
But I
allowed
think
to
that was
apply
put
for
in
your
as one of the
application.
Right.
What I would say, I think,
But your
this is
deadline-
something that we were discussing, and so timely with the folks that recommended it as well, but what they suggested and what we, also we're thinking is that we don't want you to apply more than really 60 days prior to that expiration, because, we don't want a situation where folks are applying, way ahead of when their next inspection is due. We're trying to keep them on that yearly cycle. We don't want folks to be applying and trying to, beat changes in fees or, all the different things that can come with some of those things. So if, we're telling folks, hey, here's your deadline. We'll take your application up to 60 days prior to that, but make sure you're applying no later than, and, we'll give them that, we can lay those dates out if there's a desire for us to do another round of letters and emails, that's more specific to that property. I mean, that's going to take every one of them we gotta, look at, but we can do that.
That would be the best.
It's some more.
The 30 days has just been confusing for people because they think their deadline is the date
Yep.
and not 30 days prior.
And I
And
figured that out till the 15th and it's like, holy crap, I missed it.
right, I missed it.
Yeah, again, but just to point out, 95% of them have. I get that there are 9 people.
But
who-
we have a whole new crew of new rentals.
Well, and
will
we'll
be coming up.
we'll catch folks, but
Yeah, and we will, we'll catch folks. That's why I go back to your mulligan. I mean, the people that are here, nobody tried to pull anything. I mean, it wasn't like they were just ignoring the short-term rental ordinance.
right,
It was just hard to understand.
right, and
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So one clarification, make sure I understand clearly, so the folks in the room and online understand clearly in terms of this amnesty. We are waiting for something to come back from the city attorney that's going to figure out a way for us to be able to do that, to allow Grayson to be able to process the applications. That essentially.
We have to pass the ordinance
No,
before they can do that.
No, I understand, but what I'm looking for is what assurances are we leaving the meeting with today that that's going to happen? I know eventually it's going to come down to a vote. And I'm a yes for that. Soon we figure it out. Sounds like we got a couple other council members that are a yes on this too. is there's people that are sitting on some business decisions tonight, waiting for council to take action. I know this takes a little bit of time to get this done, but when do we expect to have an answer on this, I guess, is my question.
Well, I think from here, if there's consensus on, you know, some ordinance modifications to, clarify that, you know, renewal licenses will be issued from, you know, the prior expiration date for a year. So that way we're doing anniversary dates essentially, as long as they're applying, timely and no more than 6 days ahead of time. So that would take, you know, an ordinance change. Drafting some language for some sort of one-time amnesty period for those that missed a renewal between probably, you know, maybe the last date that we offered this up until today's date or something along those lines. And then I'm hearing that there's consensus on it, some sort of interest in some sort of, again, using your words, this isn't a, you know, act of God appeal option. We will work on developing some ordinance language around that. I wouldn't want to commit, you know, I don't think any of you would want to commit to making a commitment that is for sure going to pass. You know, if legal counsel does some legal research and finds some sort of issue with any of these, then we certainly would want to let you know that. But we'll at least work on drafting that language to come back to you. I don't know when that exactly will be. It'll probably take a few weeks to get there, but we'll work on it.
Could I ask for better clarification? And I appreciate that, Ryan. If we're just looking at the 9 people, are you wanting a straw consensus that even though it hasn't been drafted yet, but just for the small 9 people that you talked about, that we can say safely, yes, we're going to go forward with that, or are we not in a position where we can do that?
Well, I mean, I'll put my cards back on the table as I did earlier. I support fixing the date. And the way you described it, Mayor, is fine by me. I support, call it amnesty, what you will for the 9, you know, because we are changing the date. We are continuing to fine tune this ordinance. That's pending. A yes for me is pending on assurance from council that it doesn't weaken our ordinance, legal counsel. Well, assurance from legal counsel that it doesn't, you know, impact our ordinance in a negative way and, you know, kill it through the death of 1,000 cuts. And that it's clear that it's a one-time thing. And that's legally defensible. So we don't have more people coming back to the trough claiming that they didn't know or something happened.
I can cut the expense right now. That's something that we can implement in a defensible manner.
Okay, wonderful.
Great.
So those 2 things, I'll be a yes. If other amendments get hung off of this amendment, you know, we've discussed generational, we've discussed other things that basically, you know, are going to open up license transfers. You know, we did it once in a very limited manner in April. Then I will be a no. So if it stays very focused and very limited, I will be a yes. But I won't vote for something that gets decorated with a lot of other.
I don't think the votes are there for that anyway.
Okay. Well, I just want to put my cards on the table because I think folks here deserve to hear it.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I think they should know.
Yeah.
So we got for sure 1, 2, 3, and I think Gregory said yes. So you got your 4 then for the 9 people that.
Yeah, and I would support that as well. I'm a hard no on generational transfer and we can, I'm happy to carve out the act of God if that makes sense, and I look to the lawyers and staff on this, if we want to track that so that we can act more quickly, that's fine with me.
And new communication being sent.
And new communication and, and making it clear. I mean, I can't imagine a universe in which I would want to come back with another set of people to do this again. Russ?
I just want to thank everybody that was here tonight. I want to thank the council. I'm glad we had this conversation. It's been overdue in my opinion, and I'm very glad we've had this conversation. I think there's far more consensus on these than I think we give ourselves credit for. 2 is I do want to challenge the city manager and the zoning director to begin to find ways to continue to make this a more efficient process. We've made a start tonight, but I just think this is really ripe for automation, and whether that's through a service or whether that's whatever. I mean, there's probably an app out there for this, a way to manage this far more easily to make this efficient so it's not a burden on staff. But I'm just glad we had this conversation. Thank you.
Just the last point I'll make and I'll shut up. And I'm surprised.
The quietest one in the room.
I'm surprised Jacob hasn't asked this, but I'm assuming that we're picking a date for this amnesty period, not 9 people, right? So
That's the way
Right.
when
Probably need to
we,
give him a date.
Yeah, so-
And I'm fine if you want to make it whatever, the 15th of this
Defer
month.
to legal counsel on making it bulletproof how we do it. And, you know,
Yeah, yeah, but it would be.
the last time we did.
I know. So the question is,
specific-
what is the date? Because if somebody comes into, if 9 turns into 12 tomorrow,
Yeah.
we should probably give them an effective date right now.
That's a good point.
Maybe when we can get the communication out would be the date of, once we can get communication out, whatever that date might be, it would be,
We probably can't get
Prior to-
communication out until we get the ordinance changed,
Exactly
right?
right.
So,
Right.
Yeah, we got to review the ordinance Monday night.
I mean, bottom line is it's
No,
still
it won't be
confusing
done
right
Monday.
now as it stands.
well, I think it's,
before-
let's just
So-
put a stake in the ground.
Yeah.
February 1st. I'm just throwing that out, no thought behind it, but
Or is it effective
So,
when we?
If I
when we
can weigh in
pass-
really quickly, my thinking would be that if the council's rationale for extending the amnesty is the way that the expiration renewal dates are currently configured in the ordinance, I think it would probably make sense to just say essentially the date that the new amendment takes effect is going to be the cutoff for the amnesty.
That makes sense.
Okay, gotcha.
That makes
thank you.
sense.
Okay,
Thanks, Jake.
anything else before we let Grayson sit down and Jake go to his other meeting, which he has to do regardless. Thank you, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
Great.
Thank you all.
right.
Bye.
Thanks, and thanks again to everybody who showed up online and in person.
Oh, wow. There's
Appreciate
a
it.
lot more to go.
But they, I don't think they'll take as much discussion. Yeah, hey, Scott, Public Works pickup truck purchase. And Michelle, can
think
we
you could
do
just
that?
say,
in-
"We need a
can we do
truck."
that in less than 2 hours?
Buy whatever you want.
Right.
Yeah, so page 34 of the packet, everybody.
For those that don't know me, but I think everybody does, Michelle Gibson, Project Coordinator, Administrative, PW. We only have 2 things for you tonight. So the first one is the purchase of a new pickup truck to replace our 2014 GMC 2500 with a 2026 GMC 3500. We received a quote from Todd Wenzel. The price was $55,318. That is through the My Deal program. And then we have budgeted this fiscal year $60,000 for a new truck purchase. And we will need to purchase a new snowplow as well. I've reached out to Newcomer, but I've not got the quote back for them. We do have $12,000 budgeted in for that as well this year.
Old truck goes to auction then, or
Yes,
we're not keeping it in the fleet?
no.
I'd like you to turn to page 44 and I'd like to check. Just kidding.
No, a quick question on the disposal of the old truck. I know there's been some past issues with trying to get city assets off our books and get them sold. What's kind of the plan? Is that still an issue at all for us, Scott? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, any questions before we do a motion? Would someone like to make a motion?
No more.
Oh, Monday, right.
This is discussion.
Thank you.
What before Monday?
And then,
Madam, what is the lead time on the truck? These are probably not on the lot.
Yeah, they're, a lot of them are just basic base model work trucks. So the logistics of it has changed over the years. I know at one point, like during the COVID years, we were about 1.5 years out from even receiving vehicles. I think that's been exponentially
Okay.
shortened too.
You'll be able to have it for this upcoming season then. Okay, thank you.
okay, next, the Bald Head restroom change orders?
Yes, so we have 4 change orders tonight. The first one is, change order number 2 is the electrical supply, is an increase of $115. Change order number 3 was due to a tariff price increase. That total was $3,074. Aluminum prices went up in March due to tariffs. And then the change order number 4 was the water service location. They had to run all new water. And that increase was $9,090.11. Change order number 5 was due to the demolition of the existing restroom. a local business owner was able to take it. So we are actually getting a credit of $1,000. So with that, the increase total was 11,279. The original budget was 328,000. So we are still within what was budgeted for it.
Great, questions, Russ?
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. So any expectations that, again, it's good to have it below budget. Any expectations might be additional change orders of costs, anything that might be seeing just.
No, I'm considered too, if you suspect that there's anything, but we're.
I'm just
we're
curious.
close to the tail end of the project at this point, so I think we're waiting on, taking possession of the aluminum doors. Those are slated for mid-January being delivered and then installed within a week or two afterwards.
Okay.
Other than that, it's just some minor site restoration and maybe a little bit of landscaping in the spring, and we're up and operational.
Right. Thank you.
Great, any other questions? Thank you both. Sorry you had such a long wait.
Thanks, you guys.
There'll be a quiz after the meeting.
So now we get to revenue and expenses through second quarter and our investment update with Nikki. Thank you for joining us, Nikki.
Right. No, honestly, we're doing great. Everything's where it's supposed to be. Some of the outliers that have been going on is the elevator getting fixed, the Mount Baldhead restroom that you just were talking about. The Christmas lights went in. Kalamazoo River Greenway and Maple Street's been having some things happening with it. The holiday lighting is a little bit over budget. And that's, let me see, the estimated cost of adding the extra lighting brought in is slightly higher than what we anticipated. So that's going on there. And interest is huge, and we like that. So we'll just we were conservative in how we guesstimated what we were going to get for interest without making a false positive to look forward to. So that's what we have for those. Any questions?
Chris, I have a question. I probably should have asked Scott about this. Have the lights been replaced on the pallet sign?
They were out as of last night. All of the neon was out last night.
Neon lights are kind of a dying art. And so there's a guy, he's coming Monday to fix them. So he had to make new light bulbs for it.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Scott.
Questions for Nikki?
Thanks.
Thank you, Nikki. Ryan, anything you want to add?
The only thing I would add is, next month or so, maybe 2 months, we'll come into you, we'll have some budget adjustments, just normal mid-year budget adjustments. Blue Star Trail construction is not going to happen this year. We had the Warnock, am I mixing up my drain names, but we had the drainage, district, assessment. That was unexpected. So some of that will be added in. Like you said, we have some of our revenues are coming in higher, so we'll make some adjustments there. Even with the holiday lighting, some of the work on Water Street was kind of front loaded to purchase up front to make sure we're satisfied, with that. So we had a bigger purchase up front, but we also have some offsetting revenue with a larger donation from the CVB than expected. So, but as Nikki said, things are trending well, and you should see some budget adjustments coming up. But the big bulk of it's going to be your Maple Street project. We'll be back here in early February, I think, to discuss those bids and see how we're looking on that.
Finally, just a big thank you for this. This is amazing.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that.
This is amazing.
I appreciate you mentioning that. Yes, you have the written copy of the audit. Please bring those back Monday because the auditor will be here for your presentation. So, so happy auditing reading, but it's, we'll talk more on Monday about that. Yeah.
Good news.
Great. Any other questions for Nikki? All right. Thank you, Nikki. Appreciate you waiting around so long for us.
Just got one more item for you, Mayor.
Oh, yeah. The
Investment.
Right.
You're very welcome. Next.
Yeah. So I thought she covered investments at a high level. No?
We actually have had, I've been really working hard to pull the different CDs down to an FDIC regulated to less than 250,000. We got one left and then we're gonna smooth out after that. If you go to the next page, it's got all the detail on it. And as you can see, the First National America is the only one I have left to pull back, and then we'll work on better solutions. So
Maybe just to add on that, oh, I'm sorry, Nick, I want to hear.
What does that mean? Better solutions for?
we're looking at joining a CDARS, which is a way to, it gives us a ton more insurance, like $5 million, 10 million. I don't remember what the amount is, but it's going to
security thing.
allow it. Yes.
The security. Thank you.
Yeah, a couple.
Give us the insurance.
Couple of different, products that, Huntington offers. Their CDARS program essentially would allow us to give them right now we are going out and doing the work of finding the CDs and filling out the documents and moving the dollars there and that sort of thing. Whereas we could give a larger chunk to Huntington, they're going to make sure and spread those out to make sure that we're getting the FDIC protection, but then it's kind of letting them do some of that work and then using their brand and their power to hopefully get better rates and all those good things. And then the other piece that we're evaluating as well is kind of some cash sweep options that they have that would allow us to put some of our additional dollars that we have in our account that are above that FDIC protection into the cash sweep that basically would take those dollars and through Huntington, put them with other financial institutions, but again, stay under that $250,000 FDIC protection, but still offer really great liquidity and a better rate. So it'll be a little bit actually more competitive with the My Class offering that we have, which is actually commercial paper versus, maybe everything that's offered with the ICS. But so looking at this, making sure we're diversified properly and protected as well as we can be. So
That's great.
Yes.
Question, CDAR, is that an acronym?
It is,
Certificate of
yeah.
Deposit, I don't know what the ARS is
Okay,
offhand.
and that's a
But it
Huntington,
is.
but I'm sure other banks offer that same service. We're just,
They do. In
Huntington's
fact,
our primary.
Macatawa approached me trying to tell me about it, so.
so what's the acronym? It's
CDARS.
Thank you.
Any idea what our consolidated rate of return is?
No, I don't, not offhand.
I mean, you can probably back into it. I was just curious. Annualized consolidated. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, we've been pretty fortunate with the rates. They're obviously coming down, but still, at least so folks know, I mean, obviously they're gonna see Monday, right? We have a lot of dollars that are in our fund balances, but we've been trying to make sure that we invest them in safe investments that we can per state law, to make sure that we're staying ahead of inflation or at least at inflation, so the value of the dollars aren't being eroded until such time that we can then deploy it into the capital needs that we have, which obviously we're doing a lot of work this next year to use some of those dollars on. So
Yeah, so you maintain your whatever 12, 24, 36 month liquidity levels and then try and drive the highest rate of return based on that.
I also challenge, as the CDs are coming up to maturity, I challenge the bank that's holding them to a better rate. And I've been fairly successful with it, so we like that. And the only other thing to mention is that you're gonna notice that the balance is different because I invested the excess from the summer taxes early in this quarter, so.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Questions? Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Nikki.
Appreciate it. Takes us to our second public comment period. This can be comments about anything at all. Anyone in the room wish to comment? All right, anyone online wish to comment? Ethan?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, this is Ethan Barty of 584 Lake Street, Quaint Cottages. A lot of good conversation tonight. Listen to all of it. Really appreciate all your work. I know 95% doesn't sound, it can sound like a good number, but in the aviation industry, it's a crash plane. For a lot of people, it's a crash plane when they lose their license. I would like to think that we're a small enough community that, just picking up the phone, sending an email, and communicating with an owner just to say, hey, are you sure you want to lose your license? And communicating that way. Personally, that's kind of how I would prefer to do it as a small community and being in touch with the community and caring about people. However, I do think there is another way to do it, and I did not think of this way until I listened to Scott speak tonight. And although I don't agree a lot at times with Scott, I 100% agree with Scott's the way he's looking at this. You know, if it was one date, you have to understand, as property managers, some property managers have 25, some have 75 units that they're managing. Well, that's technically 75 possibly different dates. So you have to look, you know, 30 days ahead of all those dates, and it can get very confusing. You know, we're companies, yeah, we should be able to manage it, but mistakes are going to happen. We're going to get a year from now, and there's going to be another 11 people that are going to lose their license if it stays close to the same way that we're doing it. I think we can get rid of all this, you know, one-time amnesty thing, act of God, get rid of all that by what Scott's saying is say, hey, make it one, you know, make it one date, make it January 1, all applications have to be in, all fees have to be paid. From there, the fire department can look at it and they can schedule out their year and get them all done. What we have to remember is we went from 3-year inspections all the way down to 1. So you're still getting all your inspections done every year. But you're just creating one date. There's no confusion. And what I saw tonight was a lot of confusion amongst the council members asking questions 30 days before, 60 days before. It is confusing. And if there were just one date for everyone every year, you could just make this so simple. The fire department could schedule it out to what works for them. Every property gets inspected every year. And then a lot of this confusion, all of it, I think goes away, and a lot of work goes away. But I think Scott's right on the money. Thank you.
Thanks, Ethan.
Austin?
Yep, Austin Marino, Mason Street. Just two things. First, it was a great conversation, as Ethan said. I appreciate it, and I think it's great that you guys keep on trying to hammer down and make this, as we transition to the caps, the most fair and equitable thing out there. And I think you guys are doing a great job with it. But one quick question on it, which there is a lot of confusion, so you may not have an answer. But last time we amended this ordinance, I know that the previous zoning and planning administrator called folks who bought homes after the cap went into effect and told them that they can now apply for a license. And I'm wondering, is that going to happen again with this new amnesty? Because I think just the way that the amendment was written into it is that we kind of open back up the floodgates and it's coming in. So I hope we can maybe answer that and discuss it further, because if that's the case, it is, you know, at what point are we going to, as Councilman Clark said, like, are we going to just like stick to what our ordinance says? I mean, our last 2 elections, there has been a mandate of sorts with the top 2 vote getters of how we're going forward. And again, I think that these situations that you're dealing with right now, I think it's great, and I think it deserves, you know, kind of the thought that you are giving it. But I just kind of want to look at it. What does this mean for the bigger picture? Because again, are we opening back up the door to this to happen? Now, second thing, this short-term rental report, really good. Really enjoyed reading through it. There were a couple remarks by council members about the complaints that were logged, and I do just want to make a quick note, and I want to caveat this by the fact that I do think a majority of our renters and a majority of our property managers are great. They abide by our ordinances. But for example, this says 35 complaints were logged through the Granicus Host Compliance call line. But the city's guidance all throughout the summer was for active noise complaints to call the sheriff's department. So I think for this report, I think it would be helpful if we integrated that within this. And then I also hope that we can maybe even take a look at that, because at least just from my perspective, I think calling the police on noise violations for people who are on vacation and may not necessarily know that they're having noise violations, I think it is maybe a step that could be too far into the extreme, especially when we are supposed to have property managers who are nearby the property. So I would like us to assess if that really is the right call to kind of overburden our sheriff's office with active noise complaints, when maybe we should be doing a better job of routing it through this hotline. That is it. Thank you very much. I know it's a long meeting, but appreciate you all for all that you do.
Thanks, Austin.
Renee?
Okay, I figured out my unmute again. I just want to say thank you as a Saugatuck taxpayer. I'm getting my money's worth with all of your all of your time and energy here. I'm a little confused. Are the 9 granting amnesty, does that include us, or is that is this going to be a one and done, or we have to wait until that has amended and voted on? Or I guess I'm just asking, but I can call and ask tomorrow, or call somebody and ask them to because I just am a little confused about this. And if it is so, and the one and done, I think that's good for our small mom and pop operation. My nieces and nephews, my nephew's online, and believe me, he will know that date, and so will all my other nephews, my niece and my son. So they will have that forever ingrained in their head to get that application in. So the only other thing, I know I wrote letters about what I just think that if you say get it in 30 days, and maybe I flossed over this, get it in 30 days or you won't have a license, is just a little bit more like make people stand up and notice. So anyway, thanks a lot for the time. I know you guys, it's really late. So just thanks.
Yeah, and call city, call Grayson tomorrow or whenever, and you can get your questions answered.
Okay.
All right. Doesn't look like there's anybody else who wishes to make a comment. So that takes us to correspondence. In addition to the correspondence from Chad, Kevin, and Ann, we had a couple of emails come in, which Jamie made copies of.
Those will be in your packet on Monday.
Yep. So thanks to all who reached out to us, which takes us to council comments. Lauren, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long night, but it was a really great discussion, and I just appreciate that we're looking at things and trying to make it as clear as possible, because there was confusion for just a small percentage, but I have a feeling that it might come up going forward. So I think we're doing a really great job compiling all of this, coming back with the data, and I appreciate everybody having patience with us, because I know it was going to take a little bit of time before we had the data and could come back to you and say, okay, we need to have this discussion once we have all the data. And so I appreciate everyone's patience as we tried to work through this.
Yeah.
I agree with Councilmember Stanton. A very good discussion, and it just shows how much we can get done when we all actually sit back, listen to each other, think, and talk to each other, and not, disregard any idea out of hand, and just try to really work through these things. So quite proud of the community for how we've kind of dealt with this. And especially proud of our staff. It was great to have Grayson here presenting, Scott as always, the whole team, Nicole, and of course our manager. I am so proud of this team to be able to handle such complicated tasks. And once again, I would really urge everyone to look at the auditor's report. This community is doing extraordinarily well, and we have staff that are really managing the taxpayers' dollar in a tremendous, tremendous way. So very proud. We are very lucky to have all of you. Thank you for the hard work you all done.
I'm pretty much the same. I mean, a tough topic, but it was glad to see close consensus amongst, the council, and see everybody work to try and find something that works. It's hard to, kind of walk that delicate line of how much we're putting on the staff versus trying to keep it fair and make sure our property owners are treated respectfully. So I'm kind of proud of what we've accomplished tonight, and thank you all for the hard work you put in, and certainly thank the staff for everything that they've done.
Russ?
Yeah, thank you. And again, so glad we had this conversation. I am always working on and thinking of ways in which the city can continue to improve its services to its constituents, stakeholders, property owners, everybody else. And this was an opportunity today to do that. I think as a result, improvements to a process that clearly has some issues, and we worked on fixing that. So again, I continue to want to have this conversation on any city service for that matter, because in this day, I want a culture of efficiency, a culture of effectiveness, as well as good customer service for everybody in the community. So again, thank you, council, and thank you, city manager and staff for that conversation. Call out to DPW. I can't remember the last time I've had people stop me in the street and say, what a great job the staff is doing in clearing the steps in town when the ice and snow hit. We know they do a great job, but I've never been stopped this many times, and just the recognition for that. So thanks you, Scott, and your team. Make sure they hear that because it's recognized. Thank you.
Chris? Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for having this on the agenda. And I think we have to get something going for Ryan to make him healthier, because I'm hearing another cold, aren't I?
Yeah, it's been a week of this thing. Yeah, thank you.
I appreciated very much this whole conversation, and I appreciated you all coming, because I think the fact that you can come here on your own and be very respectful when you've got things that have just, or maybe could change your whole life by losing that certificate. I just appreciate the way you looked at it, the respectful way you handled it. And I hope we responded back to you with that same attitude. It's always going to be an ongoing discussion, because it's a very, not controversial so much as people are impacted emotionally and financially with it. And we all love our town, and we all have different ways of which it's going, but the conversation tonight I thought was excellent. I appreciate our staff. I appreciate working with all of you. And I'm going to go get a glass of wine.
Well, it's kind of hard to add to that. I will also say, in addition to the people here, as Joe mentioned earlier, to the other people who aren't here, who are, keenly interested in protecting our neighborhoods and the character and doing right by them as well. So I think we came up with some really good solutions. I thought it was a really good discussion. And thank you to all. And with that, who would like to make a motion to adjourn?
Moved. Second.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.